Hey folks, so just going to start on lab video here. Going to go into section 2 here and going to start walking through the initial lab here. So um, Node.js you should have installed from the previous module, but if not, just install it from basically the website that's linked. Um, you can install different versioned managers to install Node.js. I use NVM to change different versions of Node.js, but um, for the purposes of this course, you should be fine just installing the latest long-term support version. And like that should really do you until you finish the course, to be honest. I'd be very surprised if it didn't. It can be hard to understand when you're new to computer science why you would need a different version manager and all that kind of stuff. So don't think about it too much. Go through the installation of Git, which you should have done in week 1, and you should have stepped through the SSH setup and things like that. Highly recommend you do that. And also download and install Visual Studio Code, which some of you would have done already, I guess. But if not, just go download it. So I have installed Visual Studio Code. I have removed all my extensions, which I will greatly regret at some point. But not really. I find VS Code very easy to use as an IDE. Over the years, IDEs have got simpler to use, thankfully. There was years ago, if you had to move IDE or move laptop, it could take you forever. That doesn't really happen anymore. So as I've removed all my extensions, so if you go over to the left-hand side here, the 4 blocks, you can see I have no extensions installed, and all extensions will do is give you different levels of syntax highlighting and code completion and maybe even debugging tools and things like that for all different types of development. I wonder, did I get rid of my built-in ones? No, they're still there. Okay, so that's what comes down in this. Okay, grand. So because I've uninstalled all my extensions, I assume I'm going to be tripping up over myself doing this lab walkthrough, which I kind of did just more from an educational perspective to mimic the stuff that might trip you up if you're using VS Code for the first time. So be patient. I've left myself out there to see what happens here. So if we go take a look at this on GitHub, I can't do that. I can do this. Okay. GitHub.com. Okay, cool. So if we go take a look on GitHub of our repository we're going to be starting with, here it's up here. It's one we've used for a couple of years. You can see it's 2023. So this course has remained mainly static for the last couple of years, with the exception that glitch does not exist anymore, which we'll deal with that, I think, maybe next week. But so this is what we're going to be working on. So we're just going to clone it. But if you're in Git, well, I'm actually not logged into Git on this Chromium browser. But you can typically, when you're logged into Git, click here, and you will see the Git SSH option in here. That's what we're going to be using. So that's where I've got this command from. So we're going to do a git clone of this. So I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to open up a terminal, and just going to go cd home / Let's go to labs and web dev 2. Let's just go to Mictor web dev 2 2025. See web dev 2 2025. And I'm going to git clone that in there. Whoops, sorry, I've git clone typed twice. So I have set up my VS Code so that I can now go into that directory, which would be web dev template. Well, I'm actually going to, I guess, change the name of the directory to playlist 1. And then inside of playlist 1, I am going to type code, and this will open up VS Code for me. Launching VS Code from path. So if you want to be able to launch a VS Code from a directory that you're in, and use the command line interface for VS Code, I only use it to launch in a directory that I'm in. I find it quite useful. So I just do code dot, and dot is what usually means the current directory. Let's go check out this. And I think there's even a way inside of your IDE itself. Did I actually launch that? Hang on. Let me launch that there. Yeah, so if you do Control Shift P or Command Shift P, that will bring up the I forget the name of what this is, but it's like the command window. Maybe I can do it here. View Command Palette. So you can also go View Command Palette. And you can see we can select different terminals here, which I'll show you in a sec. But you can also say like install, and it should give you an option to say install code command in path, and just run through that and maybe restart your command windows or your CLI, and it should all be working then. It's kind of handy. If not, just check out the docs. So now we're in here. I've unintentionally started my VS Code tutorial. So yeah, one big thing to understand here is the command palette. So you can see you can go view command palette, and that'll give you a bunch of different commands that you can start typing and things like that. And also, if you press Control Shift P or Command Shift P if you're on Mac, it'll pop it up too. And that just kind of gets into your muscle memory. There's also different ways of getting there. You can press Command P to just search different files by name as well. Server.js, Command P, roots.js, and you kind of get used to just kind of dotting around in these. You can also split your view over here on the left-hand side by pressing this. Well, I don't want to do that. I definitely don't want to do that. All right. Close all. Close all. Why is that splitting horizontally? Oh, there we go. Okay, I clicked the wrong one. Where we can just split vertically. End up doing that a lot as well. You can drag tabs around, close it down. You can right click, and I think you can say split as well. Different ways, depending on what your preference is. And yeah, so what I'll do is I'll work through the lab, and if I come across any issues as well, I'll kind of with VS Code, I'll explain a bit more. And And so one thing you want to do is view your terminal window. Um, and you view a terminal by, you can Command Shift P, you can uh, type terminal, maybe view terminal, kind of guessing here. Yeah, so toggle terminal, it will show you your terminal down here. And terminal is, I think it's used across Windows and Mac on VS Code to just say the command prompt. Um, so you can see I have a command prompt open here now. One thing I would recommend doing on Windows is selecting the default profile for your terminal. So you see, I have all these different ones, but I think I'm running ZSH. I am, but you can just select all different ones, and I would recommend you select. I think it's either command prompt or CMD in Windows. Just as a beginning. If you're comfortable with PowerShell, feel free to use it. I am not comfortable with PowerShell, and I never will be, I hope, unless I have to teach it at some point. Um, but yeah, I'd recommend using terminal there. And if you select the default profile using the way I just showed you with the command palette open, it should stick. You can also, down the bottom right down here, select a terminal, but this little arrow next to it, you can do little different things. You can configure terminals and select default profile as well, and the same thing will pop up. If I add another terminal here, you can see I have multiple different terminals open, and you can kind of rename them as well if you wanted to, or it'll also be, if you're running a command in there, it'll change that name to it as well. That can be quite handy when you're doing different things. You might not need to do that as part of this course, but that's where your terminal is, or your command prompt. And it will by default open in the directory that you're in. So if I'm on Linux here, or well, Mac, so I can do print working directory. And you can see it's put me in WebDev2 playlist 1. So I should now be able to run to start this. But I'll draw a line here at 12 odd minutes, and I'll put the bookmark in just to say this was kind of an intro to VS Code. So I'll start working through the lab now and explaining a bit more about what's going on in the lab as well. So yeah, we have opened VS Code. We do have a terminal. I do go through some of that information about how to set up a terminal. But one thing we're going to do now is an npm install, which we would have done in the previous module as part of 11t. But I will talk next week about what npm is a bit more. But it is a package manager and a build tool provided as part of the Node ecosystem. And you manage different software dependencies and things like that. And those are words that may be new to you, but I'm just going to keep using them, and they will eventually get into your brain, and you'll start knowing what they mean. So one thing I'm going to do is, if you go to package.json, you can see here I have some dependencies, and one of those dependencies is Express. And Express is something, again, we'll be using without explaining too much, but it is essentially when we add basically a HTTP server and then the routes, that's all done via Express, and you can see that in the code. So that's a dependency that doesn't come with Node at all by default. But because this is a project that exists and it has dependencies, software that this software depends on, already configured, because it would have been done as part of setting this course up a couple of years ago, we can now run an npm install, and it will read the package.json and install all of these. So if I do an npm install, I've done an npm I, which is just short for npm install. It's just muscle memory for me. Apologies. So we're not going to worry about these warnings for now, but we will worry about these vulnerabilities here. So if I do an npm audit, we have some critical vulnerabilities and high vulnerabilities, and we're just going to fix those by doing an npm audit fix, and it should just work. Doesn't always work just easy like that, but happy days, it does. So now we have npm installed our node modules. So if you look over here, you can see a node modules folder, and in there there'll be like ridiculous amount of directories. Just close that, forget about it, and it doesn't exist, right? For now, essentially. You can see it's grayed out here because it's in the git ignore file as well. You typically do not push this into git because it's so vast and so large. In here somewhere. There we go. So yeah, that's where those dependencies are installed. And so we've done that, we've fixed our audit, and we're going to run npm start. So if I run npm start, you can see the server's running and it's to-do list, which is probably wrong. So what npm start is doing, if you go back to our package.json and we look at our scripts and we look at start. So when we run npm start, this is what it's running. And we tell it what to do when we go npm start, and we're telling it to run server.js using the node process. So the first thing that starts up is server.js, and this is where it all starts. So I can cancel this down here, and I can just run that myself. So I can run node dash version, and you can see I have a version of node installed. But I can also do node server.js, and it will start up the same thing. But what I want to do is run npm start, and you can see it's run the same thing. And if I go back into my dependencies, cool. Okay. Now just double checking something there. But now we've started our application, and we can go to, I'm just going to close all these. We can go to localhost 4000, I think it's running on. And there it is. That's the main template application we're going to start with. So great. So where we're going to go next is into playlist. So we're going to start changing this template application into our playlist application. And the first place we're going to start is in our views partials brand.handlebars. So if we go views partials brand.handlebars, we're just so this is a partial, which is just a div with an SVG image in it. Believe it or not, this is an image. Kind of crazy when you think about it. And we're just going to change this, I think, to playlist 1. And then in our views about view.handlebars, we're going to change that to playlist 1 and just, a little playlist maker or whatever. So in here, cool. And so then inside of our controllers, we are going to go in our about controller. We're just going to change about playlist 1, and then in our dashboard controller, playlist 1 dashboard. Okay, cool. So we've done some stuff there. Let's make sure our application is still running. I'm just going to do a refresh here, and our application is still running. And you can see here we have some logging that's kind of been outputted as I make changes. So when I make a change and save, we might see another one, or maybe we won't. Maybe we have to refresh. Okay, maybe we do. But if we go back, yeah, look, we have playlist one up here now. We go to our about, we have playlist one, and we have our little comment there. So yeah, and we can see our logs here. Okay, so we're going to go through list playlist. And one thing I'll just step through very quickly is just how all this kind of clicks together. So let's have a look at that. So if we take a look at server.js, remember if we go back into our package.json, we're doing start node server.js. So this is where it all begins, and this is where your head should begin. So you have a look in here, and this is kind of configuration. So we're setting up Express. We're setting up to use a cookie parser, which we'll use later. We're going to use a URL encoded body parser, which we don't have to too much now. We have static assets set up in a public directory, which I don't think we're using right now. We have the ability to upload a file. I don't know if we do that ever. Maybe we do. Maybe we do in the later sections. I don't even think we do. And we're telling the so we have this engine here, and it is basically an Express, how Express and Handlebars integrate together, how Express runs the template engine for Handlebars. So we're just a quick setup there. It's kind of boilerplate. And we're telling then for views to look in the views folder, which we have here. And then we're telling it to use the router here as the root. Two different spellings of root there. And we're then saying, okay, the app, which is an Express app, to listen on a port 4000 if there's not one defined in the process environment at the moment. And then to print out, our to-do list started. So we could probably just change this to playlist, Control C in the console, and then npm start. And we can see our playlist has started. So the router here is going to be invoked when we hit the root of the domain. So when I say, I'm going to type it here, this will be hit when we hit the root of the domain, just to show you I'm doing a different spelling. I'm saying a different thing. The English language is tough sometimes. So when we hit the root of the domain, the root of the path, like we're going to end up hitting that router, which will send us in there. And that is defined by roots.js. So if we go into roots.js, we can see that when we do hit the / which is the root, we will end up in the index of the dashboard controller. And if we go back here, you can see here, we're going nowhere here, which will bring us to the root of the dashboard. Sorry, the index of the dashboard. So this is now our different roots that exist. So we have / we have dashboard, and we have about. So if I go to dashboard, I end up in the same place. And if I go about, I go into my about page, which is a little bit different. So these are our roots, which route to functions. And our functions here, we're doing model view controller. So you don't have to do a model view controller, but you should. So we could, in theory, just do, I guess, let's give this a go. See if I can do this on top of my head. So if we go here, need to restart this. Yeah, so that's really all we're doing there is we're giving it a function to run. And the function we put in here has request and response. We're not using the request at the moment here, but we're sending the word well down the response We could also do some JSON back. I think. I don't think we need an extension for that. Let's see. Hello. Yeah, there we go. So it's after returning JSON there. But I will undo all that so that we just end up again with the dashboard.index. We click into, so we can control click into that, or command click. So if I hold control or hold command and click on the index here, it'll bring me into the index. And that has brought me into the dashboard controller, which is an object that's exported from this particular file, which is a module. You can see we have our index here, which is our action or index action or method within that object. And I kind of say in the lectures that we use the term action typically when we talk about methods that are designed to be hit by requests and handle responses and return them in a controller. So I typically will probably end up saying the word action. But anyway. And we're doing a response.render, which is calling the engine to render the dashboard view with the view data. So if I just go back to the roots, save that. So we're going from our roots to our controller action, and then our view will be rendered. And if we go look at our dashboard view, we can see here that it is a partial that uses a menu partial, sets a variable called active on that menu partial, but all of this is then contained within the main layout, and that will all be rendered inside of the body there. So this is the main layout, similar to what we would have done in 11t. See, we're using an older version of Bulma here. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. We can update it and whatever. But Bulma isn't really the focus here. The focus is going to be on Node.js and handlebars, essentially. So save that. Okay, so I'm just going to go jump back to the lab. So we have our server, which uses routes, which uses controllers, which have actions, which render views. There we go. So let's go back to the lab. Let me restart this and reset my Zoom. Okay. So we're going to introduce a new partial called list playlists.handlebars. And I'm going to do that here. New file, list playlist.hbs. And I'm going to disable all this AI stuff. It is disabled already. I've installed everything. So great, grand. Create a new file called list playlist.handlebars in views partials, and we're going to put in the following code. So so essentially now we've added a partial that uses for each as part of handlebars, and it's going to iterate over something called playlists, and for each of those playlists add a div, which is a box which has a title inside it. And we're going to change the dashboard view to handlebars to just contain what we have here, where we're just going to use the lists playlist partial. And then we are just going to make sure the app runs successfully. So I'm going to Control C and I'm going to npm start again. And you can see there's nothing here, which is great. That's what we're expecting now. Just believe me with there, I hope. So we're going to go to our add playlist. So we're going to bring in a new partial called add playlist.handlebars. I'm just going to copy that inside of our partials, new file, add playlist.hbs. Great. And this is a form. We have not covered forms yet. We will use forms now for the next couple of weeks, but we will cover them not next week, maybe the week after. So our form is posting to dashboard add playlist, a playlist title that we will collect here in this text box, and we will have a button for add playlist. So as we scroll down, we want to change our dashboard view to include the add playlist. So if I go add playlist and refresh here, you can see now we have our add playlist. So that is rendering, and we have a button here that is going to attempt to post to dashboard.add playlist, but that doesn't exist. So we'll add that now. So here we get into where you need to tune your kind of muscle memory into what you want to do. So you want to add a new route here. So the first thing we're going to do is go into the routes.js, or if you're from America, the routes.js. And we're going to do a router.post, where we say /dashboard add playlist. So that's where our form is trying to go. And we're going to tell it to call a add playlist action in the dashboard controller. So obviously we don't have that yet, but we've added this route here. And we're going to click into our dashboard controller, and then we're going to add an action for add playlist. So I'm just going to copy this and get rid of these. And if we take a look at that code, so what we're doing here is we're adding a playlist. Well, our method is called, or our action is called add playlist. It takes request and response. We're pulling out the title from the request body, and that's related to the body parsers you would have seen in server.js. You don't need to dig too much into that now, but that's how that's happening. That just doesn't just happen by default. And we have a little console.log here. So let's see if we can see that console.log. Let's go back. I'm just going to refresh. Might need to restart, but we'll see. I think we do. So here we go. Add playlist. Now the playlist is quote unquote added. Not really, but you can see in all we're really doing is logging. That's all we've done. That's all we've tried to do. So we're saying adding playlist smooth grooves and redirecting back to the dashboard. So response start redirect back to the dashboard. And that's exactly what it does. It just, the form submission has sent us to dashboard.add playlist, and then we want to redirect back to the UI essentially. And that's what we've done here. So we haven't added the playlist anywhere yet, but we can see it in the logs. So what we're going to do now is have a look at the playlist store. So if we take a look at our models directory, we have this object store, which is using something from utils store utils. So if we go have a look there, you can see we're using something called lowdb. And if we go to our dependencies, you can see that's used there. And if we go npm lowdb, this will tell us that it's a simple to use type safe local JSON database, which is a mouthful, but essentially means it will give us a way to work with a quote unquote database to perform things like queries and updates, and it will store it locally in a JSON file. So that is something we're going to use and not dive into too much. You're going to maybe create a new one as part of your assignment that will come up. But again, it's kind of more copying and pasting and kind of having an initial understanding of what's happening there. So you can see here, we're initting a store. We're using a data type to tell us where the JSON file should go. And there's some file handling here, which I don't think we will cover at all in this module. But yeah, so go back to our lab, and yeah, so if we go back into our models and into our object store, I'm going to drag this over here and just close everything else. Do I want to save what is done in server.js? Sure. So we have our object store, and you can see here we have, we call it init store, which you've just seen, and we just call it objects. And you can see we have get all objects, add objects, and we've kind of given these methods wrapped around what the database does. So we've kind of created an interface where we can get and add and delete objects here. And, you know, in there we have dbRead and dbData.objects. And you do this so that we can change the underlying database here without changing, you know, the overall interface for this class. And we've essentially introduced encapsulation there, and I guess separation of concerns and stuff like that as well. So we've kind of said we have these methods to act as an interface to the rest of our application, and something is going to happen to get objects and read objects, but the rest of the application doesn't care what that something is. So we've encapsulated all that within this object store. So what we're going to do is leave that there and just create something called a playlist store. So we're going to copy this, and in our models, we're going to right click, new file, playlist store.js. And yeah, so you can see now we have get all playlists, add playlists instead of get object, add object. And you can see we're initting the store with playlists. So our file is going to be in playlist.json, or our data is going to be in that JSON file. So great. So then in our dashboard controller, where we've added playlist, we're going to use that store. So if we go back to our, so if I press Command P and I type dashboard and I go to the controller, in there, I'm going to, no, I'm not going to do that. Up the very top, I'm going to import the playlist store, and then I'm going to use it. So I'm just going to grab this here, playlist.add playlist, playlist store, excuse me, add playlist. There, and that should call add playlist in here, which will write a new playlist to our JSON using this database module. It will also give us an ID using a UUID module. So if I go back to npm UUID and go look at that module, you can see here it is. We're using v4. Let's click there, and it will give us a universally unique ID of this syntax. And you can read what all that means here. Have a good time. There is an RFC attached to it. Again, read that and have a good time. On me, go for it. And okay, so now if we go back, I'm going to restart this. I think I've wired everything up, but I was rambling a bit. So if we go look now at playlist.json, we will see we have our Smooth Grooves playlist in there. Great. So now we want to actually view those. So if we go look at our index, our playlist dashboard, I think I'm just going to grab this line here where we get all the playlists. Okay, and so what this will do is it will call get all playlists, and this await here is needed. It's essentially get all playlists and add playlists is an asynchronous task, so it happens off the main event loop, and you won't really know what that means if you haven't done this stuff before. But basically, a simple way to maybe think about it is Node.js is going to go off, let's say, on a different process. It's not really, but let's just say it's going to go off and get all the playlists from the file system without blocking up its main kind of process, let's say. Now, process is not the correct word to use, but it's kind of a simpler word to use at this point. It's really threads I should be talking about. But let's just say Node.js, when it's doing something asynchronous, and asynchronous means, it's like an email. You're going to answer it at some point. So Node says, I want to do this, and at some point it will be complete, and I will come back to it. And that's what this await does. This await kind of doesn't pause Node, but it pauses your code in a way to wait for that to come back with all the playlists. And that's done through promises, and we're not really going to cover what they are because they could be quite advanced. But just you should know that if there's an async method, which is something that Node is going to go off and do at some point and come back, that you have to await it. And that's basically what it's doing here. So you're waiting for an async task to return, and it will, and it'll bring back all the playlists. So I'm going to go back in here, refresh, and that didn't do anything. Probably missed something with all my rambling, but there we go. So I just restarted. And if we go look at our dashboard view again, so our dashboard view has the lists playlist partial and the add playlist partial. And if we go look at the list playlists partial, and let me put that there. Where's my dashboard view? Where did that go? Okay, dashboard view. So you can see for each of the playlists, so this is here, what you're worried about is playlists. This is our data that we're iterating over. So for each of those, it'll draw a box and put the title in there. And if we go back, look at our controller, when we're viewing, where the view data contains playlists. So this is essentially linked to this. And that's what we're doing. We're iterating over that. So if I go back and I add another rough grooves, we have two, so it's going to render this twice. So there we go. Okay. Great. So exercises. Yeah, the main thing here is you can go and take a look then at playlist 1, which is the complete version of this lab, and run it. But if you step through there, you will have the same thing. And add something to those views just to see if you can kind of click it all together in your head. And then I challenge you to kind of understand what's happening by going through the routes, the dashboards, and the views. And yeah, take a read of that and see how you kind of feel about it. let's say if we look at the extended views exercise, let's just have a look at it. I guess we want to extend the dashboard view to contain some simple statement about how to use the application. So if I go to the dashboard view, and we have list playlists, add playlists, and if I just did something like P, welcome, please add your playlist. So that'll just put that up there. Nothing crazy. And extend the about to provide contact details. So if we were to go to our about view, greatest playlist ever, just copy that div, make it a P because that's what we should be doing. Contact me at john@email.com. If we go to our about page, there we go. We could do a yeah, no, I'll leave it at that. And yeah, so that's just those exercises there, but there is a big opportunity here to learn different things. So have a look at exercise 3 and see if you can understand it, essentially. So yeah, so if we continue on and look at the labs here, I go through a bit more of the VS Code setup and how to debug. So let's just do that there now. So if I go back here, I'm going to cancel this here. I am going to go to right here and I'm going to put a breakpoint. And over the left-hand side in the gutter, they call it, you'll see this red thing here. I'm going to click breakpoint there. And then I'm going to click over here on the left-hand side where a little bug is. And I'm going to say run and debug and Node.js. Run npm script start. All right. And if I go back to my playlist and refresh, no, I'm going to go back to there. Is it breaking there? Oh, I need to add a playlist. So I will say another playlist, add playlist, and now it's after breaking, well, it's after stopping. So you can see the browser is spinning because the request is still open. So it's waiting for a response from our node server here. And you can see here that our code has now stopped. And you can have a look over the left-hand side of the variables that are available. You see a request, which is a whole lot of stuff. Our response, which again is a whole lot of stuff. But you can see the data we're working with here. And up at the top, we have just continue, step over, step into, and that kind of thing. So what we'll just do for now is just step over, and it brings us to the next line. And our playlist store now has our new playlist added to it. So if I just click continue, you'll see another playlist there. So people might find that useful to debug. And as you can see, I had everything disabled in my VS Code, and I didn't even know how to get it working, but it worked very easily for me, which is great. So I'm just going to stop that. So you can run via there, or you can just run via the terminal. I typically end up running via the terminal. Because I'm not usually in the debugger. I think as when you're writing tests for code, you debug less. Not that we're writing any tests here. For me, this is kind of straightforward, but for you, it's not going to be as straightforward. And knowing how to debug is quite a useful tool. So that's everything. We'll leave that there. And yeah, so best of luck with the labs, and we'll chat soon.